All right, let's go. So, looking at developer experience, and specifically what that means, I'll get into in a moment. So, by way of introduction, my name is Jason, and a couple of items on a code of conduct. This is just a reminder to please be kind. If you do join live, or alternatively, if you're watching a recording, I am looking at products that I may or may not use on a project, but also what the experience is like of trying to get started using it for the first time. So I may offer things that might feel like criticism, or editorializing what I'm experiencing. But my intention really is to be growth oriented and ask anyone if you add a comment or anything like that. Likewise, um, creating something that's easy to use is a lot of hard work, and most of the time we focus on what the product does first and foremost, as opposed to the usability of it. And sometimes it doesn't get enough attention. So that's what I really mean by developer experience here. So the other part is that I'm not an expert in everything. Even if I've been programming in one particular piece of technology for a long time, it doesn't mean I've solved every type of problem there is related to it. And so I think this is just another reminder that learning takes effort. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry or how many projects you have under your belt. So that's just something to keep in mind. The spirit of the show, or sort of one of the ideas that kind of inspired it, was this KPI around this time to hello world, or sometimes might be affectionately referred as time to wow. Um, and I heard this in a talk at a conference once, and I thought it was kind of a nice way of thinking about it. Some people would just say, 5 minutes, time to hello world, but I did like that this referenced sort of a truism around communications theory or marketing or advertising, that you only have really 3 seconds to get someone's attention and 30 seconds to really deliver your message. So it is this idea that, hey, what is this a litmus test for a developer experience as well, including within 3 minutes, someone should be able to create an account and see, and make the tool or library or SDK or whatever it is, actually get a result from it. I do believe that 3 minutes is a little aggressive, so I don't necessarily subscribe to 3 minutes specifically. 30 minutes. I'm not going to give up on a product, even if it takes me almost 30 minutes to get it working. So I think anyone who's like, "Hey, I did it in 5 minutes," it's probably because you practiced or you already knew the tool or whatever. That it's a little bit unreasonable to think that you're actually um, coming in completely blind and actually having that amount of success that quickly. It's possible, but like, it just seems unlikely, or unlikely to make a valid decision of whether or not you should use something in that amount of time. But certainly it does create in um, a little bit of an emotional response if that first 3 minutes is painful. So that seems fair. I will sometimes dive into different topics here. For example, in the past, I've looked at friction logging, what customer zero is, developer journey map, developer intentions, and I'm going to continue doing that, where I'll dive into just like one little developer experience topic, just for a few moments before actually going and evaluating a particular product that I'm looking at for something I'm working on. So, with that, I'm going to reference this quote again. What is developer experience? Well, it's the experience developers have when they interact with product and documentation. There are other definitions, but I mentioned this one because it comes from a great book that, if you're interested in developer relations or understanding developer adoption, or technical adoption, there's a lot of really great ideas in there. And one of them is this chart, and this notion of the developer journey map. Oops, apologies. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of there for a second and grab a copy of this URL and pull it up. And hopefully this will be big enough if I zoom in. Can I go full screen? I'll just make it a little bit bigger. And specifically here, last time I talked about like these stages, and what that means, but I wanted to take a moment here to also to talk about these like internal and external touch points. If you've watched any of the other shows, I mention about especially like these external touch points being very important to me when I'm evaluating, which is why I usually start with a search just to see what else shows up. But kind of, focusing in on this developer experience piece again. So I do find myself quite often looking at, hey, is there documentation? Is there a landing page? What does it say? Um, I'm not someone who leverages frequently asked questions very much personally. Others may, and so, but every once in a while, that could be a nice way. I think in some tech writing circles, I've heard that referenced as a lazy way of conveying information. But if you recognize a question, or there's only a few of them, it could be done pretty effectively. There is the product pages that hopefully conveys a little bit of the spirit, even if it is usually in terminology that may not always necessarily um, map to what I'm trying to accomplish. It's really this getting started and quick start is usually where you'll see me kind of focused. Let me just zoom in a little bit more. That Because hopefully that has a few steps that's going to lead me to that idea of that 3-minute mark where I've created an account and I've actually gotten some result from the system so that I get a feel for how it all fits together. But a quick start, it's obviously a much longer path to actually get to production. um, Code samples, because I like code samples and I like looking at them, especially their short listings, because it gives me a sense of like the philosophy of the company that developed it. Like, what do they think developers care about? What is the architecture of that system? Tutorials to know that there's specific paths I can follow based on what my actual requirements are, or to help inform, like, oh, that's a great idea. I should probably do that. I didn't know this tool did it, and I'm glad that you showed me how. I think tutorials can be very informative because I think a lot of times we don't necessarily know the requirements of what we're building. Sign up and registration hopefully is super smooth and not gated. Otherwise, that can sometimes put an evaluation at a very clear halt. And then leading to things like, change log, is the system stable? Is it, is there a release every month, which could indicate one or two things? Either, hey, this is it's alive, right? We're making improvements, we're fixing bugs, or it might suggest a lot of instability, and that I'm constantly gonna have to be upgrading, especially if there's like non-backward compatible changes. So the changelog can convey some of those things when really deciding whether to pursue a particular solution. Having a sandbox to play in can be useful. Usually want to use my own tools anyway, um, but then also extensions and how it all works together. Some of these supporting things that are mentioned here are reasonable as well. Community and whether someone's available to answer questions can be super, super helpful. Being very clear on use cases for where to use a thing or not use it. I think it's much actually better to be very precise. If you say, I solve all of your problems, not only is that not believable, it also potentially just dilutes what the actual value is. Training, for certain products or in certain use cases, like if I'm already committed, training might be very valuable. But um, anyways, I still I do like this journey map just because it conveys a lot of information. And this is just in the developer relations, the book. They have some information here that you could check out if you want. So jumping back to this just for a moment. Um, okay, so usually it shows around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. If you're tuning in live right now, it is obviously not that time, but it might be 3:30 somewhere. Um, Streaming this both out on Twitch and YouTube, and you can find the full schedule on Developer XP. For me, the real value of this and why I'm doing it is recordings. I find that having something I can go back to and look at and grab screenshots and or edit is actually part of why I'm doing this during these evaluations, as opposed to trying to keep notes separately. Usually I'm only really broadcasting or showing the first 30 minutes to an hour of me evaluating something before continuing on and getting to work. Because I think those first impressions can be very informative. So, with that all out of the way, let's go. So I'm going to go ahead and exit here. The tool I'm looking at today is Growthbook. I forget how this came across my path. If you've used it, I'd be interested in what your take is. But I'm working on a project and I'm thinking about all the marketing automation and those types of tools I might need. So hence, I think that's why this came into my radar. Um, but solicit, and in the analytics space, thinking about A/B testing, thinking about user tracking, feature flags, that whole breadth of systems. I like how this intro, I think, covers it pretty well. An open source platform for customized feature flags and A/B testing. Um, uh, I also see there is a GitHub here that features pretty prominently. But it's those two use cases are something that I do want to incorporate in projects. And so knowing whether or not this works. So I want to come over here for a moment. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to jump to the GitHub since it has appeared pretty highly in the results. And I do see, over 5,000 stars. That's not unreasonable. 400 forks, but I don't know. Is this the website? Is this a dashboard? What this project actually incorporates is unclear. Um, I do see, so here's other ways of doing an evaluation as well, seeing how many issues there are, right? So 213 in and of itself doesn't really tell me everything. It doesn't tell the full story. It tells me there's a lot of activity. If all of these are bugs and not addressed, that could be very informative. If all of these are feature requests that are slowly being resolved, that suggests a high demand for new things. Um, it does suggest that there's momentum, that there is people using it to me, um, which also says something. I also see, this is maybe someone who's working on it, tech support engineer, creating issues. So maybe the issues are being reported somewhere else and they're using this to track. So if you think about a business that or an enterprise, there's someone that's working with a lot of enterprises, maybe this might actually be a rather small number. So anyway, I don't think the number itself is the way to evaluate so much as what it might mean. Um, this links to the website. I'm going to guess that this is the same link here, growthbook.io. That's useful. Let's see what else we see. Just out of curiosity, October 2023, September 2022. This also gives me a sense of how long they've been around right off the bat, which I think can also be an important evaluation, knowing that it's been, there's a little bit of longevity there. Alternatives to Google Optimize. Y Combinator 22. Is that so? It's only been around a little while. PostHog is actually on my schedule to look at PostHog as well, for what it's worth. I'm not gonna look at this comparison right now. That comes later. But okay, gives me a sense a little bit. So let's go take a look at the website, see what it's like to get started. So deliver impactful software. Open source platform for stress-free deployments, measured impact, and smarter decisions. Get started for free. Let's see. What about So I'm seeing a couple of brands I recognize, which suggests a little bit of credibility behind them as well, in addition to the GitHub activity. I'm still at a stage. I'm going to say, like, one of the first questions I have in mind too, because it says it's an open source platform, whether or not this is a thing I go and run on my own, or whether I pay as if it's a SaaS, or if it follows that model of I could either, right? Like if I had a whole engineering team that wants to make it their day job to maintain and do the operations DevOps for this, more power to you. Or I could just pay some amount of money. So I do see it get started for free, but I do want to look at pricing just to see if there's any immediate red flag roadblocks. Um, so it looks like Starter Pro Enterprise is the breakdown, or self-hosted. So maybe that answers my questions, right? Um, um, so okay, but yeah, I would need a license key to self-host if I wanted to. In my case, I'm not making an enterprise decision and have security policies and things like that. This is a side project. So Starter is most likely where I would be anyway in terms of my evaluation. Free up to 3 users, which is fine. Small team, cloud hosted on servers, even better. I don't have to go set up infrastructure and DevOps stuff right off the bat. Up to 3 users. Oh, it's the same thing, right? Unlimited traffic, unlimited feature flag, unlimited experiments, community support. That actually sounds really generous for me to be able to kick the tires and try things out. Set up in under 2 minutes. No credit card required. I also appreciate the clarity there. I don't have to get a couple of steps in and realize I have to talk to a salesperson or anything like that. So, in terms of being able to get started, it seems like there's no roadblocks here. Pro is $20 per user per month. So advanced statistics. Um, I'm going to admit, maybe I'm not an expert in marketing stack. So, the difference between the advanced statistics versus any basic ones, maybe that are in the starter, is not something I'm informed well enough yet to make a decision. Um, Feature coming soon. What is that? That was an interesting hover. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Advanced permissioning, feature flag scheduling. Okay, so you can use feature flags, but schedule them to turn them on and off at set times. Premium support, visual A/B test editor. So, I mean, there's some features there that maybe suggest, it's worth an upgrade at some point. Here's the more detailed view. So there are limits on API requests. um, so that might be unclear, right? Like if I can have unlimited traffic and experiments, do each of those get attributed? Like, do I have to make an API request under the hood there, or is the API request just a separate pathway for other things? So, like, even yeah, there's a one here. Maybe there's a little footnote I can figure out. Fair use policy apply. Oh, okay. That's going to be a question sort of on the back of my mind is whether or not I can actually if it is actually unlimited or if it is metered by API requests. Supported compliance. Not my concern yet, but I mean, obviously, I have to apply. Some of these apply. Okay, what am I not getting in the free plan? Just so I know, Slack integration, that's fine. Test sequential variants, encrypted endpoints, scheduled flags, advanced permissioning, SAML. Again, I'm not setting this up for an enterprise use case yet, so that's fine. Team support is fine. SLAs, multi-tenant. So yeah, so I'm not seeing any red flags here on pricing, which means I can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to reference this again, that 333 kind of thing. I mean, obviously, I've already been going at this for a few minutes, just looking at trying to understand the pricing to know whether or not I can consider this or not. So that again, so obviously I spent more than 3 minutes and I haven't even tried to get started. So the get started makes it very clear. But again, I'm still not even sure if I'm ready to commit quite yet to giving up my email address. I mean, yes, I am. I'm going to sign up. We already know that. But if I'm evaluating some new tool, I may not be that convinced yet. Just to kind of get a feel for how the docs are organized is helpful to me. So there's how that works. I appreciate diagrams. So your users, hit the SDK, A/B testing, figure out your database. What is your data? So these events. So do I have to provide my own storage? Your database. That well, no, I don't think that's it. And experimentation analysis and feature flags. Okay. Um, there's maybe another element to this. I mean, there is an assumption that you know a few things about what you want and what your requirements are, and I think that's true here. I know I want feature flags. I want to know as I roll things out how much they're being used or not. And A/B testing, right? Like I want to test ideas and see what message resonates or gets the result I want or not. So the fact I can do these an unlimited number of times is actually pretty um, um, nice. Looks like here's the JavaScript SDK. It does look like it's just a simple if statement um, with some tag. So I think thinking back to the sample code or code listings I mentioned before in terms of evaluation criteria, um, this does tell me something, right? Like this tells me um, that it looks pretty simple to integrate and use. Like it doesn't seem overly complex. There's probably more to it, but at a how it works level, that seems reasonable in terms of feature flags. Now, I think experiment analysis is probably where the complexity gets in, maybe. But maybe there's just I think another mental model is, Google Analytics being pretty ubiquitous. Like how does this compare in terms of usability or tracking the results of these tests? I think that's something. There is a quick start, so maybe I'll see if I can run through that or not. Um, I don't like testing new tools with my project. I need to create something new, so we'll see if they actually help guide me to do that or not. But at the very least, let's go back to the main page and go ahead and see what the sign up process is like. So um, I don't need to self host in this case. I think it's fine. Free, no credit card. That's makes me happy. So I need to register. Looks like just they want first name, email address, password. It's not so bad. I do need to. I did not do this ahead of time, so I do need to generate a password. So I'm going to go do that off screen real quick. Um, so, all right. And oops, let me copy that. And I could sign it with Google, but I never like doing that. Yeah, sure, we'll save that. That's fine. Developer XP. Okay. So it looks like they give me a video I can watch right off the bat. Um, I know you're not getting the audio through, so it's a little bit distracting for me real quick. But so this might be, I'm going to go ahead and open it over here because I might want to watch that later on. Um, but yeah, it does seem very focused on feature. I thought there might have been a little bit more in terms of analytics, but it does seem like everything is organized around feature flags and experimentation, which is still, again, something I need, so that's fine. Features enable you to change your app's behavior. Um, Install the SDK, read the user guide, add your first feature. Okay, and I can come back to this quick start as well. Um, let's do the so the easiest way is to use a cloud. Sign up for a free account. Fine. So it's going to go through examples of feature flags and experiments. Add an SDK endpoint to allow Growthbook to communicate to your app. So, sorry if I'm slow. Okay. So is that what I was looking at here, or is that old information? So features. Do I need to do this side by side? Click on SDK configuration and SDK connections. Add SDK connection, name it. Okay. But over here, is the SDK configuration, SDK connections, create. Um, what kind of name do I give it? Like, is it because I'm going to have more than one? I don't know what a reasonable name is for this, but um, I mean, it's going to be a front end, so no, I don't want to do that. Growth book SDK connection. Um, we'll just go ahead and, well, what does it say over here to do? Let's see. Project, all projects, but I had to use production, right? Or no, I don't have projects anymore. Okay. Hash secure attributes. Huh. So, I mean, obviously, this is why I say DevX is hard. There's screenshots and things, and obviously it's changed since this quick start was written. So, doesn't quite match up with what I'm seeing. And there seems to be some options here that, I don't know, maybe it depends on which way you're doing it. I kind of want to keep things simple in this evaluation, so I'm just doing I'll just go ahead and do that. So my app will be connecting here. So this looks like it's giving me some of the settings. So suggests how to set it up. So let's go ahead and now I did not do this ahead of time. So I am going to have to create a new project real quick. I'm going to pull this over here. And oh, my goodness. Let's add a new folder. We'll call it Growth Book. And then we'll get into that. And then what do I need to do? I'm going to start a new project. Yeah, this could go wrong, but we'll go ahead and do that. It did not seem like the quick start had an opinion. It's just plain JavaScript here, right? But that's running. Let's go ahead and see. So this gives me the snippet of code and everything. So I think I am on step 3. One of the SDKs in your application that's used to evaluate and run experiments. Grab the SDK package for your language, add the initialization code, make sure the client and API are correct, add any targeting attributes. Okay. So let's see. Oops, I should answer my questions first. Just doing a skeleton. We'll do. There we go. Okay, so I need to do this installation. It said so. It is interesting. The SDK doesn't tell me, or this quick start. I'm sorry, doesn't tell me what to do. And that's probably a decent design choice, right? Because, you know, if you assume I'm doing a web application, then it would do you could do that. But if I was doing feature flags for something else, suddenly this quick start wouldn't make sense, right? So you almost have to, depending on which type of SDK I'm using, there would be some branching there. But so okay, so yeah, so let's copy and paste this, but I need to do one or the other. So I'm gonna install it this way. So we'll come over here and see how that goes. And then create an instance. I'll go ahead and copy that. All right. So let's go ahead. I don't know if I do this on the client side or not. Let's go ahead. I mean, so let's go ahead and do that for a moment. So I think add any targeting attributes. All right. So yeah, and I think yeah, I mean, this direction's not quite clear to me yet. Maybe I need to establish what my actual use case is. Um, I think that's why, for what it's worth, I do appreciate when like quick starts and getting started guides actually give me a sample project to get a feel for things in a way that prescribes it that there's a good chance I'll have success. Um, this is written to say like, hey, go do the thing you were trying to do, um, without really a whole lot of guidance. If I knew what I wanted, right off the bat, or set up a scenario where I was trying to evaluate it already, then maybe I'm in a good place. But it seems like I got to go do that. So if I do this for a second, go npm run open. Oops. Um, definitely gave me an error, right off the bat. Try that again. Um, so there's an await. Okay, load features. Maybe let's take a look at this a little bit. The non-async function. Well, that makes sense. So if I were okay, um, do that. I think this can still be predefined. I could do something like that, right? Nope, maybe not. Export. Wait, where's the export? Hmm. So to the point, I've gone off the rails a little bit here. Um, Maybe this is me being silly. On svelte, how I would incorporate this into this type of, so maybe I really want to, Um, Let me read what I'm doing here. All right, so I'm creating a growth book. Please, obviously I'm showing this in plain text. Please don't steal my key. Um, if I'm using SvelteKit here, so I could always move that to the server if it doesn't need to be on the client side. It's not clear to me yet whether that's something I can rotate or what. So I'll come back to that later. Dev mode, yeah, that's fine. Tracking callback. Use your real analytics tracking system. I don't know what that means. Um, Let me see. Where is? All right. So something's not happy. So let's see if we can figure that out. Okay. So this is an error that's coming from Growthbook itself. Yeah. So is this? So I chose JavaScript on the client side and did an npm install. So there's something incompatible here. So I think the rest of these steps, I guess, add an additional event to track experiments, track which users are exposed. Growthbook itself does not collect raw events. It works with event trackers. So what does that mean? Does that mean I need another tool? See a tracking callback method. I did. You need to adjust this to call your event tracker with the experiment key and variation ID. Okay, so here's amplitude, clever tap, Firebase, fresh paint, full story, Google Analytics, Keen, mixed panel, and particle rotor stacker segment, snowplow. So it sounds like I have a dependency that I have to resolve before I can actually use Growthbook. Is that the right interpretation? I mean, which is fine. It's just that makes it kind of rough to evaluate this in isolation, which I don't have to, but right. So I mean, I can go grab like Google Analytics. Okay. Well, now I'm off in even further. Google Cloud Console, setting up BigQuery. This suddenly, so again, not to, 3 minutes. Not that Growthbook ever said 3 minutes. I'm just saying, like, the idea that I'm doing all of this within 3 minutes seems ludicrous. This is, for a tool like this, requires a much larger time investment. So it doesn't seem like I'm going to get much farther than that right now. I'm going to have to, this might be more of a half day project kind of thing. Um, it does. Hmm. I am kind of curious in some ways though, because it's just so let's think through how this is going to work. So if I use Google Analytics, is this really just saying like, okay, maybe the SDK will modify the URL in a way that tracking wise, my analytics tool is going to record the different page views of the different variations, and then I can use that data to do an analysis. So, should I be thinking of Growthbook as like a broker? And I think this diagram I was glad to see, but this doesn't necessarily maybe tell me. I guess like it comes back to your database. Okay, so I need to have my own storage that shows these things. But if I'm doing that, um, I think I'm unclear which part Growthbook is doing, other than maybe the configuration, and or again maybe it's doing some sort of data stuffing so that I know. I don't know. Is that even a word or a term that makes sense? I don't know. It's packing data into what's being stored in the URL regularly so that I can then analyze it later, but doing it in a systematic way. Um, hmm. So yeah, so this gets back to I need to store my data somewhere else. Um, yeah, I think it's like if I were to make a suggestion here, I think this quick start or whatever needs to come up with uh, you know um, or what would have helped me in this scenario. I think is if there was a free database that I could utilize off the shelf, and instead of giving me the choice at this stage, just saying like, hey, Firebase is free, go sign up for that. This is set up this, click here, 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 and so that you can continue evaluating Growthbook. I think that diagram could be a little bit clearer as well. That might have helped in terms of what my dependencies are. And again, I don't mean this to be disparaging in any way on what they're trying to do, but I mean, it is a paid product. And there are a lot of people working hard to make it better. But I think those are some of the areas where I've gotten confused. Um, and then likewise on the feature flag front, yeah, I can go and figure out, okay, here are the features of my main application that I'm going to care about. But I feel like setting up a simple scenario to really drive home how the SDK and the platform and my storage all work together would probably have helped me a little bit more clearly say like, okay, um, you have features, here are two features, go add two forms, using some maybe UI kit or something, or just make it something simple like a button, and then go and click one button, the A button a few times, go click the B button a few times or whatever, and you can see how often someone is using that feature, right? Like to tell that story, as opposed to me going off and actually using, building a real application. And again, I think that's when I'm evaluating a new product, I don't want to incorporate it into my actual product yet, because I don't know if I'm going to stick with it or if I'm going to have to go use a competitor, or an alternative. I'm still evaluating. So I need that sample project to really kind of let me understand how it all fits together. But right now, it sounds like to me, I need to try get a data storage component, and I don't know. My perception was that was actually the harder part of the problem, and that might be unfair. But that's again just sort of maybe a expectation coming in. Um, okay, well, I think again, I'm a little over a half hour now. I don't think I succeeded in my evaluation. What it gave me is I have to go evaluate a different product first. Um, and or configure it like Google Analytics and setting up BigQuery and things like that. So that's what suddenly I'm no longer evaluating Growthbook. I'm now off working on a different project. So so I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna continue. I'm not gonna give up because I think there is value to this product. I think being able to do A/B testing and feature flags. There are a number of solutions out there. This one does seem to have a lot of usage, so I think it's probably worth putting in more effort. But I did not get there in 30 minutes. So, anyways, I'll keep at it and like I said, subscribe and or follow the website. At some point, I'll make it easier to follow for updates on where I end up with this tool. So thanks. Have a good rest of your day.